Managed service is a bit slightly easier than cloud computing. It's basically any service that's managed by somebody other than the enterprise itself. So it might be that your entire IT infrastructure is managed by someone. It might be that, again, certain functions within the IT, be it the network core or be it further up to the application scale, some of that function is managed by an outside managed service provider. There are some purists in the industry who say that unless it being hosted on a shared infrastructure, then it's not a managed service. Otherwise, it's traditional outsourcing. It's making the distinction between the traditional outsourcing model where you pay a fixed fee overall for someone along the lines of a big systems integrator to come and manage your platforms. The managed services at the very top end would then be on a shared platform infrastructure so that the managed service provider can utilise economies of scale. To my mind, there's a middle ground because that sort of marries the two together, because certainly no large enterprise is going to suddenly outsource absolutely everything. There are managed services providers that can use a mixture of managing the enterprise's own network applications and everything further up that stack, and then we'll take some of the functions, newer functions that there are no legacy problems there to overcome, and manage them on a shared infrastructure. So we at BroadGroup tend not to take the purist view that everything has to be hosted on a shared platform or a shared infrastructure, but that if it's being managed by someone within a managed service provider, that a specialist managed service provider space, as opposed to a systems integrator who's managing the whole architecture for a big corporate, then it's a managed service. Oh, they're evolving on such a huge scale. Everything that has happened over the past 5 years technological advancements have meant that managed services have become more of a reality. If you go back to, again, probably 8-9 years with the application service provider model, that at the time seemed great, but then it didn't quite work. What has happened over the intervening years is that broadband penetration has gone up, networks are actually an awful lot quicker, so that has enabled things along the line of the apps provision on a managed service provider scale to actually become a viable option. 8 to 10 years ago it wasn't as viable as it is today. What happens with each layer on the stack, from the data centre through to the network, moving up towards the applications, as each one becomes more technologically advanced, it feeds into the next layer. That also happens that as each layer becomes more utilised right up to the applications utilisation, it feeds again back down to the network and data centre. So it's a big circular market where, as long as the applications at the top carry on being utilised and move further up, that will feed through and generate further developments in technological advances down the bottom of the stack, right down to the data centre and to the network. So the evolution is certainly nowhere near. The biggest part of the evolution of managed services is actually the cloud computing. You know, that is the pinnacle as far as we can see yet, but who knows what somebody's going to announce tomorrow that they've come up with. If anyone had suggested that cloud computing would have been an option 5-6 years ago, they'd have been told that don't be so ridiculous. So it's very difficult, because whatever's going on in someone's labs or someone's R&D development, a disruptive technology can come along and change the landscape completely. But it's one of those markets that is evolving a huge amount, and even those more mature areas like storage, like security, areas that have been around as a managed service for quite some time, they're taking on new levels with different types of storage needed, with larger amounts of data being needed, and with the managed security, with cloud computing and with certain apps taking the security onto the network to make sure that it's a huge, great process that's feeding off each other. So it's certainly not finished evolving yet.